In this video, we're going to create a table using Visual Studio 2008. One way to create a table would be to work directly in the HTML. So you'd work within the body tag, since that's the visual area of the page. You'd use the table tag for the structure of the table, the TR tag for table rows, TH for table headings, and TD for table cells. Visual Studio also allows you to create a table more automatically. So using the design view, you can select the table menu and choose Insert Table. You can also work a little more specifically once the table is created, inserting, deleting, selecting, or modifying elements of the table using different menu commands. But all of that is locked unless you insert a table in the first place. So we're going to create a basic table with 3 rows and 4 columns. And you can align your table. We'll choose center. And we're going to choose to give it a width in pixels. Let's say we'll choose 500 pixels. And cell padding determines how much space within the table cell surrounds content. So it gives you a bit of like a buffer or padding area, as it's called. Cell spacing determines how closely your cells are positioned. If we want our cells to cleanly nudge against each other, we set that down to 0. Borders. What we're doing here is actually the way this panel works, it's not changing the borders as an HTML attribute of the table. Instead, it's creating a style sheet specific for our table. And I'll show you that in a minute. When we change it to a size of 1 and choose a color of, let's say, blue, now when I choose OK, what you see is a table has been created in the page. But even by telling how it looks here, there's only a border around the outside part of the table. So what you can do, if you go to your source tab, you can see here that a style has been created automatically called style 1. Given a width, a style class has been created, given a width of 500 pixels and a border of 1 pixel solid, and then the color, which is a very standard way of defining a border for a div or table or any other object in CSS. Now this style 1 class has been applied to the table. So what we'll see here is class equals style 1. Now you could combine the two techniques. So one way, of course, we have our CSS class defining the outside border. I could also expand the table and put border equals 1. This gives the table a default border setting. So now when I go back to design, my table has lines. One brief point to make as well is, let's say that I want to have my column headings be in the top row. What you're seeing here is that the designer is trying to accommodate us by dynamically setting widths for each column. It's sort of hit or miss. You're better specifically defining the widths for each column in at least the top rows TH cells. And speaking of TH cells, if you can see here, still making headings for my rows, and I'm going to put in each cell here, I'm just going to type value for the sake of time. But what you'll see here is we don't really have headings. Everything looks the same. One way to handle that in a standardized approach is to go to source, find your very first row. As you can see, the table structure here, we have our table cell, our TR for table row. Each column is a TD. But headings are actually not a TD element, they're a TH element. So as we go through and we define each heading, we're not only going to make the appearance of the cell change in the design mode, they'll now be centered and bolded, but we're also creating a more well-structured table, meaning that, for example, even web browsers will handle the table better, and accessibility tools, for those with vision impairments, will better be able to explain this table to individuals relying on those tools. So now what I'm going to do is preview the table in a browser. And it's going to ask me to save first, and I do so. And now what you can see is the way the table appears in the browser, and we did this through, let's say, the majority of which was done in designer tools, and a small amount was done in HTML. You're going to find as you create web pages that you might do your initial layouts in a tool, perhaps Dreamweaver or Expression or any other product for web development, but then you're going to get in yourself in the HTML and you're going to inevitably have to make tweaks and adjustments to really get things to look great.